All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the channel. This is Rob here at Smirking Gun. And today we're just doing a little first impressions video. I don't know if we're going to continue to make these. I say that all the time, but I wanted to give at least my first impressions or a recommendation slash review slash discussion slash stream of consciousness on the new limited series starring Benedict Cumberbatch called Eric. At first, and if you like what we're doing here on the channel, don't forget to like, subscribe, all that stuff. Just to get that out of the way, so we can, because I don't know how long this video is going to be. But I didn't see a trailer for this. It just one day popped up in my Netflix feed. I hadn't really been looking for. I don't check a lot of coming soons anymore, but Netflix is usually pretty good at stuff, and like telling you something's coming out. I guess this just went right by me somehow. Because if it's with Benedict Cumberbatch being in it, I immediately am going to watch it. So all I knew was like the thumbnail that they have on there, and there was like a puppet. And I read the description, and it was like the first thing I thought this show was gonna be was like a different, like sort of it reminded me a lot of the show Happy. It was on Sci-Fi for 2 seasons, where it was Christopher Maloney and Patton Oswalt, and Christopher Maloney was a cop who's seeing a unicorn that his daughter loves, like an imaginary friend. And in this, Benedict Cumberbatch ends up seeing a made-up imaginary character that his kid drew up. So it's got that similar thing, but tone-wise and a lot wise, like that. Happy is insane. Happy is one of the most insane shows, top 5 maybe most insane shows I've ever seen on anywhere. I think Preacher would be up there as well. This is taking like some very serious subject matter and things that deal with addiction and mental illness, and just being in the 80s and being gay in the 80s, and there's a lot going on in this series. Different characters and different motivations, and I gotta say, like right off the bat, I really liked it. I thought it was really refreshing, and it's not anything like Happy. Like I said, the tone in this is much more serious, but everybody's bringing their A game. Cumberbatch disappears in this role. There were moments that in this episode where I was like, I forgot completely that I wasn't watching a completely real person in some of what he was doing. And this show brought up, like in his character, a lot of things that triggered me a little bit. Not like triggered like I'm gonna crawl under the blanket for days or something, but more like like that punch in the gut you get when you can see yourself in the character. And by that I mean like, and not like, I think I'm, Superman or some shit. No, I mean when you see behavior that is being displayed that you exhibit, and you might be self-aware to know, like that you do these things, but then to actually see it in practice as kind of a mirror held up to you, that's where I'm talking about, and how it triggered me a little bit in his character, especially dealing with like addiction, because his character is an alcoholic, and he's, I guess they would call like high functioning alcoholic, right? But I mean, at this point, this character is, I don't know, he's about to hit bottom. He's in a really bad way, and I saw a lot of me in him. And so I did have some things to say about this, and we're just going to go over the episode, because I mean, like, no spoilers at all. No spoilers at all. But and if you don't know what this is about, Eric is about a kid named Edgar who goes missing after the one time, he walks to school on his own because his dad was distracted, and the kid just took off. But not like took off like running down the street. Just he walked out and they let him leave. Um, and his dad is Vincent, played by Benedict Cumberbatch, and he plays a man who is on a show that he helped create called Good Day Sunshine. It is like a Sesame Street type show with puppets, and before you find out about his drinking, he seems like all right. He seems just like really into like because we have this cold open. I'm getting into spoilers. Okay, so that's the basics of this. The kid's very talented. The kid shows signs of being really talented and following in his father's footsteps as somebody really creative, who uh, kind of looks like he really wants to follow in his father's footsteps. And anyway, the kid goes missing. There's a detective involved named Ledroit who is also obsessed, but he's obsessed with a different case and how the missing kid, Edgar, helps him continue his case. And as far as like the bigger picture of the show is that Edgar or Vincent and Ledroit will be teaming up to find his missing kid, Vincent's missing kid, and along the way, like they're, I guess, the imaginary friend of created by Vincent's son on paper has come to life, like a la Happy, swearing and everything. Except, see, Happy is a super happy character. Like he doesn't swear, so it's again tone wise different. But none of that, like the Eric stuff, happens till the end. We see pictures of him and we know where it's headed, but it doesn't get there really until the end. All of this is like basic plot setup where we're going, setting up a lot of mysteries and some red herrings, I'm sure, things that are meant to look like, it's a mystery show, so they got to set things up. Unfortunately, it's like I can always like go, boom, look at this, boom, look at that. But I think even your garden variety, in fact, I would venture to say that with all the like how many people out there watch procedural still, like NCIS and shit, uh I bet you they're better detectives than I am at this point, at least television detectives. So you know what, I'll be pointing things out and I'm like, oh, but you know what, if you watch 1,000 episodes of NCIS, you're gonna probably pick up on something, how they do things on accident, no, on purpose. All right, but I really love the acting straight on down the line. Plenty of character actors in here that are been in all kinds of stuff, and we'll get to that in spoilers. But it really did grab me. Especially, I mean, so much of this is the acting, the story. Again, we've seen these stories a million times, so it's how good's the acting, how good's the writing, how good's the execution. It's set in the early 80s, I'd say like 1980 practically, because it's still like the end of disco and heading into hip hop. In fact, there's references to this in the show of like kind of the passing of the torch in a way, I guess, from disco to hip hop and MTV generation and all that stuff. Um, and I really liked the way that they portrayed that here. It wasn't like I wasn't drenched in it. They threw some songs in there, and we didn't have people walking around with cell phones and all that. But that wasn't like the kind of immersion they really needed you to feel like you were in. Hang on. I was fooling around and I accidentally hit my PlayStation remote and started playing Netflix. I think though, after 9 minutes, it's time to get into spoiler territory. So for people who did watch the first episode and were looking for somebody to talk to you about it, well, here we go. So yeah, outside of the acting, I really liked how they introduced the Benedict Cumberbatch through the eyes of his kid on the show that they do, Good Day Sunshine, which I did not know that's where this was headed. Puppeteering, man. Puppeteering's a wild job. It's hard. you can tell that it's a lot of work. It's like a dance, you know. Everybody's got to be playing their part at the exact same time. I mean, like in anything, but you're also having to like speak and move for someone other than yourself at the same time. Like it's one thing to like just be yourself and act, but then to like have to move something around and do the voice, and that's a lot of work. Um, but on the show, I mean, it's this old chestnut of the we've been doing this for a long time. We're an institution, but now it's the changing times, and we have to money wise start looking for new demographics. Same thing that happens with everything. Something that people really struggle with today is realizing that as time goes by, new fans of things are going to try to be enticed to that thing. And so yes, the people who make stuff cater to new audiences because that's how you keep a show on the air and keep making money. That's how it is. If you happen to like something and it starts to change because of that, it's okay. But apparently it's not these days, right? Every time anything changes, it's like, Jesus Christ, everybody fucking shits themselves. Like, anyway, but that's what's happening here is they want to move into a newer, like more modern direction, bringing in beatboxing and hip hop and boom boxes. And Benedict, this is where we start to see the real Vincent in this meeting, where he fights all change. It's the, and it's also the like, okay, like in a sports movie where they're like the scouts are in the stands, man, you know, you really got to put on a good show. That's basically what they're saying here is we got the like sponsors here, we got some important people in the audience, guys from the networks that, you know, control your jobs, that just because you have good numbers and things like that doesn't mean that you can't act professional. And that was like that okay, we'll get to it, but this is a pretty big cliche where they really emphasize to the main character who has an issue with changing the show, because there's several cliches going on here of the nothing can change, you know, this is how we, you know, we had the dream, and if we do this, the dream is over, our thing is tainted forever because, you know, we caved to you know, the changing times and staying relevant, to keep advertisers interested, to keep your show on the air. And it's just, look, when you put your thing out there and you take money and you know, you're allowed to do what you do, there's like, unfortunately, concessions that have to be made. Or guess what? You have to figure out how to do it on your own. It's like one of those hard truths that like any creative has to come to terms with, is that if you want to control your product yourself, you have to figure out a way to make it and get it out there completely on your own. And then hope, you know, and then still you could find somebody who's like, oh, I'm going to give you the platform to do this. But yet there still might be down the end, you know, like somebody who will try to change your thing. And that's just the trade-off. And so this is that guy who's being told, like, you got to be open to new ideas. You got to be able to like play ball and don't let me down. So, I mean, when they put the emphasis on the don't let me down, you know exactly that they're going to let you down. So I wonder if he'll let him down. Spoiler alert, he does. I really liked that Edgar, his son, is the one who came up with Eric. And that when we saw all of his stuff, you saw the potential for this kid to even surpass his dad. All the stuff on his wall, like if his dad is good and the kid is this good at 9, you know, what could he, you know, really, you know, he could probably surpass his dad. And then comes dinner time, and this is where you really see Vincent. So we saw the guy in front of the, you know, the professional doing the job. I'm puppeteering. And then you saw the guy behind the scenes who was problematic. I mean, it was also, you know, going after his coworkers. Although it was kind of like everybody going after everybody, and him mostly jumping off of him not being cooperative and open to any ideas that would help everybody keep their jobs, for a lot longer and maybe for more money. Who knows? Um, but it's at dinner when they come home, and we already saw him at the liquor store. And the first time I saw him at the liquor store with like a couple of bottles, I was like, oh, okay. Okay. Suddenly, the other scenes like make so much more sense. He's in that good zone kind of still where he can function at his job, but like when he's probably not had a drink in a little while, it's that edginess starts to creep in, and so he's in there pissed off, probably does he hasn't had a drink, and he's mad because they want to change his show. So he's fighting authority. He's probably got the addiction thing pushing him along. And then once he's home with the wife, who is enabling him because she starts to say, "Oh, it's time to drink already," but then she takes the glass of wine, and so they're both drinking, and he starts badgering his son at the table about the idea of Eric and how he should sell himself. And this kind of badgering out, the way he treated him, this is the first time I like got lost in the characters, and was just really like seeing how things went for me when I was that kid's age, and dealing with people who like take their problems out on you when they're drunk. And in this case, I almost wanted to say that's because in this state, Vincent might be thinking, they want me to make this new puppet for my show, and I got nothing, but my kid does. And so here's my chance I'm pissed off that I can't come up with any new ideas, and my kid's coming up with them all the time. And he tries to show him on the subway, and I skipped the subway thing because it was just, he gives money to the vet. He's checking out the guys with the boombox and the hip hop. He's trying to make his son laugh a little bit when it gets, uncomfortable. But the way he treats him, like, it made me feel like and think that he's thinking like, I don't have any, in the state of mind that he's in. Like, I have nothing. I have no ideas. And here's my son. And instead of, and this is something I'm very familiar with, and plenty of you out there are also very familiar with, is the undercutting of the parent, and out of nowhere just destroying you. And you don't even know why. It feels like just absolute betrayal. It's one of the worst feelings you can feel, to be like completely made to feel like worthless and useless and not good. And I just it was a mess. And both of them now, the Gabby Hoffman's Cassie and Vincent, are fighting and drinking and throwing things, and it's just, there's just so many. I saw so much in that scene. And like the next morning is also like a very familiar thing of someone that, if you've been around someone with addiction, where they know they've messed up, and it's all sorries and misdirection, trying to get you to forgive them without asking for forgiveness, playing around. And it's just, this is where he then tries to apologize to his wife, and this is where they allow the kid to just leave. And it's like, oh, big surprise, like you even, they set it up where you could see people like watching, and there's like a shadowy figure that moves across the screen. And then yeah, he goes to work and big surprise. He completely acts out. He starts in the puppet show. He shows complete disdain for this man that's like in authority, but like is there not like that. He's not like he may be about money, but there's like and we don't I don't know. The guy, they usually portray these kind of guys. This one being played by Jeff Hefner, who's played this kind of guy before. The guy, the suit. Um, but I also saw myself in this, the way he was acting towards this guy. This everything's a fight. When you're up against some kind of authority. And again, addiction makes it so much worse. And I've always had a hard time with dealing with people above me, like as far as not like my assistant, like your general assistant manager, that kind of deal. It's anybody above them. The people who can walk into your job and just say, "You're fired. Bye. I just don't like the cut of your jib, buddy." You know? And in my case, I've had to deal with many of those people, and for some damn reason, man, and it's like I don't know if it's self-sabotage or what, because it's when in those situations where sometimes I find like I have no like concern for my future survival financially when I meet these people, and I'm just like, yeah, uh-huh. And I used to like to always blame it on anxiety and stuff, but there's a really healthy dose of just fighting the authority at every turn. And he does this here. I don't know if I know I've been this dismissive of to people at times. And it's something that I try so hard. And a lot of that is due to anxiety and terrible social cues. Um, but again, adding addiction to that, I remember when I was drinking, it would be so much worse. And it's still not great all the time. But when I was drinking, oh my God. So yeah, he acts out. And I really did feel bad for everybody there. But it was a pretty big, like, non-surprise that this happened. Um, Now, the first, okay, weird thing that I saw was he was, when he's puppeteering and the girl next to him says, "You're bleeding." He says he got hit by a bear. Now, it could have been a cut from when the wine glass got thrown. That's what I'm thinking. But it was that first bit of mystery where I went, do we know where that cut came from? Because then you just start looking again. All of us couch detectives, all right, like turn on your powers now. Couch detectives, activate. Um, then we have George Lovett, played by the very, very, very awesome Clark Peters. Clark Peters is one of the best character actors ever. And not just because he was on a little show called The Wire that I know at this point was said ad nauseum for about 10 to 15 years of, you've got to watch The Wire. You've got to watch The Wire. Well, some things can get overhyped, but once the hype died down and people started watching The Wire on their own and saw how awesome it was and how Clark Peters was such a great part of it. But he's been in tons of stuff that's like The Chi. That was a really good show too. But tons of movies, tons of shows. He brings it every time. In this, he's just one of the people who lives in the building that Vincent and Cassie and Edgar live. And he's the guy who sits out on the stoop and shoos away people and everything. And just seems like your nice, mild-mannered gentleman, right? But when the cops go to his door and they question him for a second, the way that they framed the scene, it was definitely to set up, is this guy, like, is the kid somewhere back there tied up somehow? But it was like they were trying a little too hard, and I feel like this is definitely a red herring, except there is a moment at the end where I went, oh shit. Maybe there is more to this than meets the eye. Then with LeDroit, again played by uh, McKinley Belcher III. Um, he's involved. He's the cop that's investigating the missing Edgar, and that leads him to the Lux nightclub. I believe the Lux was a real place, and I will make sure if I make another video to double check on that. But he goes to the Lux because he knows that the kid that's on his route to school. We see that in the beginning of the episode when they're walking home from Good Day Sunshine, uh, that they passed the Lux, and that was definite foreshadowing. Where LeDroit goes undercover, and we think he's there to try to find like something that has to do with the kid. And it's not that he isn't; it's that we don't know that he's also there for on his own, and that we find out that he's got like a desk full of tapes. He's been wearing a wire every time he goes in there, and he's really bothered by somebody named Gator who appears to run the place. And in this moment, he runs into a problem in the bathroom, and I was wondering how long this was going to play out because everybody's doing coke, everybody's turning tricks, it appears, or something, and then there's a beatdown and basically a mugging, and then he turns around and he says police, and it turns out the two guys that are in there are Vice, and they're undercover and they're trying to get their own game going, but they bring up someone named Eight, that something happened to someone named Eight. And there we go. Is another part of the mystery. Who's Eight? What happened? Because when they bring up Eight, the other cop tells the other guy to shut the fuck up and you're talking too much, basically. We also find out that LeDroit has like a hubby at home, and I don't want to assume because they do bring up AIDS in this, and in that bathroom scene, they say some pretty nasty things about the situation around. There's some pretty horrible things they say, but they definitely bring up AIDS, and that was one that was. I don't want to make it ever sound like I downplay this, but man, the AIDS epidemic, yeah, it's something that gets left out whenever they talk about the 80s. Is like, hey, remember the 80s? Ghostbusters, Back to the Future, Cabbage Patch Kids. It's not that it isn't brought up, and I guess there are, depending on the list you're trying to make when you bring up the 80s, the AIDS epidemic was, well, big surprise they don't like talking about it because they don't like talking about anything LGBTQ still. But I didn't want to definitely jump on and say this guy has AIDS. He could have leukemia or some form of cancer or something, but it's pretty on the nose what they're trying to say here. Um, and Vincent's so bad at this point that he's drinking on the street. People are like pushing their kids past him. I think he kind of sees himself too. He's like, this is what it's come to. This is what it's come to. I am now openly drinking alcohol out of a bottle on the street. And even like he goes to his kid's school. He cries at his kid's school. And when he comes home from this, he's drunk again and he has to get pushed in the back way. He took the back entrance. And now I don't know if that's foreshadowing or not. I didn't think anything of it, but love it bringing him in through the back. I wonder, I don't know. I'm starting to wonder something about whether or not maybe Edgar doubled back. I don't know. We'll see. See, this is what happens when you start talking, when these mystery shows come out and it's all ends up being, what about this? Maybe it's this. But he brings him in through the back. He's drunk as a skunk, and the cops have a bloody T-shirt that could be Edgar's. Now, this could be another red herring because even Vincent says there's a ton of these shirts. Every kid has them. But Cassie's just, where she's at in her head, she's just like, no, it's him. It's him. So again, red herring, don't know. Got to test the blood. And we find out that for Detroit, this is not about the kid. The kid is away, hopefully back into the Lux investigation, because he has an axe to grind against Gator, who it appears by the end of this episode that he traffics people, and it sounds like more like traffics kids. He probably traffics all kinds of people, but LeDroit is there to try to bust this guy, and he's worried that Edgar might be one of the kids that met Gator and might have been trafficked, because he's got recordings of a kid talking to, I believe, Gator. And he also has a recording of somebody talking about how there's a near 10-year-old that somebody might want. So that doesn't look good. But again, do we know for sure? They're setting up all these things, that these different threads that'll start, What I like about the threads, though, that can happen in these kind of mysteries is at least some threads go nowhere, right? But that's boring. So I'm hoping that what this show can do is take some of these threads and still have something interesting at the end of it when you follow it. I don't know. It might not, sometimes you don't find the answer to your mystery, but you find something even weirder. And I wouldn't mind seeing some weird. And then even when he's trying to get in touch with his kid, he is just getting hammered. He finds the pictures of Eric, and it's him. You can tell it's him, and maybe he knows it's him. The guy's got a bottle, and it's like spilling out with looks like vomit and poison, this kind of stuff. And so he spends the entire night drawing up this guy. And we also find out in these intercutting scenes of Vincent just pounding booze, just pounding booze. But Cassie has a side piece, a guy that I guess, there was a guy outside the house looking, and I think it was that guy. So when he left, whatever, he probably came over, and now she's going to him for comfort because, well, she can't get anything from Vincent. And does George have Edgar's comic? He said he wanted the crossword, right? And then we see him doing a crossword, like a new one, and it feels like, again, are they trying to say that did he come into contact, or maybe he just found it? It could be one of those, I just found it on the street. But then, and things start to happen pretty fast near the end of this episode, is the vice cop that's in the bar talking about how he brought up 8, but he didn't say that to the bartender. But he's like, my partner says I talk too much. Dude is sloppy drunk, and then gets hit by a car and gets killed. So what did that have to do with anything? What did that have to do with 8? Does it have to do with 8? Could he just gotten run over? Probably not. But again, I hope these threads go somewhere. And when he wakes up in the morning after creating Eric on paper, Eric is there to wake up Vincent and tell him, let's go find your fucking kid. We don't get a good look at him yet. They're still saving it for episode 2. But our very last shot is under a train tracks, and I'm not sure if we're supposed to think that's a body underneath that or what. But it's like a red jacket or a red bag, like a red sleeping bag looking thing. I don't know. But this show really did throw a lot at you, in the last half of this episode. Lots of mystery surrounding. So you've got the good beginning, the setup, the really great way to show the different layers of Vincent through each scene as a person, as it gets worse, as it goes along. Man, what a great opportunity as an actor to do that kind of part where you get to see all the different levels of a guy in only one episode. So again, as far as acting goes and execution and all that, it's all really great. Another great knockout from Netflix, but it's only episode 1. So there's 5 more episodes to watch and find out, because that's where it's gonna. The acting's not the problem. It will be whether or not the story, the plot, the mystery holds, and it's just gonna leave you flat, feeling like you've seen this before, or will it just be, middle of the road, or will it surprise me and be really, really good by the end of it? I don't know, but we'll find out. So if you like this video, don't forget to hit like and subscribe and hit the bell for all notifications. Leave a comment. Let me know if you want me to talk more about this show, because that might play a little bit into it, because this was really spur of the moment. I say that all the time, but this really was, because I'm recording this late and I wasn't even sure if I'd have like the kind of privacy I need to record. But here we are. So anyway, thanks for watching. Let me know what you think, and I'll see you on the next video. Bye.